Hi everyone, and welcome to another speed build. Today I'm sharing a bakery that I have called Sugar Rush Bakery, and this was actually inspired by a bakery that I went into recently, because when I walked into this place, it wasn't quite what I was expecting when walking into a bakery. The walls were painted different vibrant colors, they were covered in mismatched artwork, and it just had this really cool eclectic vibe to it. And the whole time I was sitting in there, I was thinking to myself, I have got to create a place like this in The Sims. So this is of course not an exact recreation of it, but I took heavy inspiration from it, and I had an absolute blast creating this build. And I know I usually say I have fun with my builds, and I do always have fun with my builds, but this one I just had so much fun with, and the interior of it is definitely a style I don't think I've really done before, so I'm kind of curious what you all will think of that. And the exterior of it is pretty plain. I didn't really do anything too crazy with it. Like, it's just a very simple one level build, and I thought about making an apartment on top of it, but I wanted to make it something that was very simple and functional, because adding an apartment on top of a business doesn't really do a whole lot of good unless you plan on actually having your Sims own the place. So I just didn't really want to put something on this lot that was unnecessary, so I decided to just keep it one level, not bother with that, make it something short and simple. And it has also been a while since I made a bakery. I think I've actually made one other bakery before, and that was a one that I used in my Get to Work Let's Play. So I had a lot of fun making another one, and also one that was just so different than the other one that I created. But here I'm doing the landscaping that I did, which wasn't really much. Like, all I did was I just stuck hedges all around the outside of it. Like, I want to do something to add some greenery, but it just didn't really make a lot of sense to me to add a bunch of plants. Like, I kind of tried doing that, but it didn't really look quite right. So I decided to just keep this very simple in terms of landscaping. Like, I thought about putting a bunch of plants and trees where I put those fountains there, but I tried that and scrapped it, and because it just didn't look very good. But the fountains looked so much better, and we of course have this outdoor eating area over here, and I thought about putting some fountains back here, but it's just whatever I tried putting back here didn't look quite right. Like, I thought, oh, maybe you can have another level to the outdoor eating area, but it just looked off. So rather than trying to stick stuff around the back of the lot, I just left that rather empty, because anytime I did, as I said, it just didn't look right. So I figured that was one of those cases where maybe less is more, and I should just leave things fairly simple. Plus, you know, like the bakery that this was inspired by, it looked very eclectic and busy on the inside, but on the outside, it just looked like your regular old strip mall store, apart from some fancy, like some colorful decals on that side of it. So I decided to kind of keep that same spirit with this place, although the different colored umbrellas on these tables do certainly hint to the color scheme that you'll see on the inside. So that does tie in with that nicely. And then we got the cake decals on the windows to indicate that this is indeed a bakery. So I had a lot of fun using those. And with the outside of it, I did have those pink awnings at first, because I was going to make the outside more of a pastel color scheme, but then I scrapped that and changed the awnings to black, and then used the more bold primary color scheme umbrellas, because that was a color scheme I knew I was going to go for the inside. So I just thought it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to have a light pastel color scheme on the outside and then a bold primary color scheme on the inside. You know, I figured that the inside and outside color schemes should definitely connect. And another thing I did, I think I'm going to do it soon, I did also change the trim on the top of the building to black, and I also changed that fence that's around the fountain to black, and that kind of gave it a more modern look and definitely helped a lot. And then here I made the half wall behind the sign a little taller, just to break up the front a little bit and make it a bit more interesting. So yeah, those small changes definitely really helped the build to come together. And I think changing the trim colors to black and the fence around the fountain to black as well definitely helped to give this building more of a modern feel to it, because the inside is fairly modern, and that just really helped it to go with that better. And then here I'm just adding some windows into the bathrooms, just so there's a little bit more going on with all of this brick in the back. And then here's where I'm changing all of the trim colors, and as I said, that just definitely made it look a lot better. Like, you know, this was an older building that they, you know, renovated into this bakery, and that was just something they did to that older structure to tie it in with how the inside looks. And then I also used those folding chairs that came with City Living, and they just worked so well for this build, because those are actually like nearly the exact kind of metal chairs they had at this bakery that I went into. And on the inside of it, in this bakery, they had like different colored chairs. So it once again, like even the chairs are mismatched as well. So that was another thing I did with this build. But right now I'm finishing up the outside. So I'm just sticking these lights on the outside, and we're onto the inside. So this area in here with that cupcake machine is of course the kitchen, because you have to have space to make the cupcakes and baked goods and all of that. So there does end up being a refrigerator or stove and all of that in there in addition to the cupcake machine. So that way, if you do want to actually own this, your Sims can still make cakes. And here I'm picking out the tables and chairs. So as you can see, we have the mismatching metal folding chairs. I think that just looks so cool. We've got some booth seating as well. And you can fairly easily turn this into a restaurant if you want. All you really have to do is just renovate the kitchen a little bit, like get rid of the cupcake machine and change out the regular stove I had for the cooking station. Then there's also the area in the front that has the case with the baked goods in it and the register and all of that. So you can turn that into the area where the host station and the waiting station go. So yeah, it won't really take a whole lot to turn this into a restaurant if that's what you want. But since this was inspired by a bakery, that is what I wanted to keep this lot type as. Plus, I've made quite a few restaurants. That's definitely the community lot type that I made the most of. So I just wanted to make a type of lot with this that I really haven't done much. And I also really love how this floor looks. I wanted to have some kind of gray floor in here because that's what the bakery this was inspired by had, but I was trying some other gray floors and they didn't look quite right. But I put this one down and it just looks so good in here. It also goes really nicely with this tile that I have in the register area. And when you download this build, it will have a bunch of baked goods in the case. I also stuck some shelves like over near the windows that came with Get to Work that you could put products on. So I filled both those shelves and that case with baked goods. So they will be there when you download the lot. And I'll try to remember to set everything as for sale before I upload it, just so that way your Sims can go here and they can actually buy stuff, and then they can sit down at the tables and eat and just hang out. And I also thought about making this, like adding the cafe station that came with Get Together in here as well, but there was not enough room for that. But that's another thing where if you want to make this a cafe, you could pretty easily do that as well. Like once again, you just have to get rid of the bakery case and swap that out for the espresso bar. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, so you could pretty easily turn this into either a restaurant or a cafe if that's what you want to do with it, because bakeries like may not be the most functional lot, but it's kind of cool. Like this is something like I should probably do in Let's Plays at some point, but I do like the idea of like when it's a Sim's birthday, instead of, like if you maybe don't want to have your Sim cook the cake, you could go to a bakery and buy the cake from the bakery and then bring it home. Like that's just kind of like a nice little idea for realism that you can do in your game. But here's where I'm starting on the wall decorations, and this is just a huge part of the build. I spent about 3 or 4 minutes of this video is just me putting wall decorations up. And I decided to leave it all in so that you could really see the process that I took on trying to figure everything out. Like you saw me sucking those arrows in there that kind of went from the front above the sign around to the kitchen and like pointed down at the kitchen door. Like that's kind of like a weird random thing, but for some reason I just love the idea of that. Like it's just kind of leading you over to the kitchen where the magic happens, and I could see people peeking through the window trying to see the cupcake machine in action. So I just thought that was really neat. And later on I did change the arrows to be different colors just to add a little bit more color to it. And as you can see here, we have 3 different wall colors on this wall. And I was trying to make different wall colors over near the register area and like kind of, that wall that basically surrounds the kitchen. Like I was trying to have that be different colors, but when I did that, it was starting to look a little bit too clownish in here because I wanted to have different bold colors, but at the same time, I didn't want this to look like a clown bakery. So I was trying to strike that balance there with having those different colors, but it not looking too ridiculous and over the top. And I'm pretty happy with how it turned out in the end. And oh yeah, I also stuck those arrows there pointing to either of the bathrooms. Like I thought that was kind of a cute thing. It's kind of like, oh hey, there's bathrooms back here. So I had a lot of fun with the arrows in this build. And here I'm just continuing with placing the different decorations, and I was trying to give it a feel of an organized chaos. Like I didn't want to just start pulling whatever out of the catalog and slapping it here and there. Like I wanted it to look mismatched, but at the same time, I wanted to kind of make sense in a way, like in a weird way, things kind of work together, which was a bit tricky. Because if I just stuck like whatever, wherever, then it would have been like a little bit too much, and this is probably going to be a little too much for some of you. But it was just something I had fun with, and it was something that was very different. Like over here, I was sticking those robots on the wall with a really nice mirror, and that I felt, I don't know, I mean, it is all very random, but that I felt was a little bit too random. And I also like this combination here of that wall decoration from Vampires, that elegant wall decoration over that cake. Like, I thought, like, with the reds in it, like, it kind of worked together. Like, you have the reds in the cake, and then the reds in that painting, and then the random arrows pointing down to the booth. I mean, I feel like in some weird way, it kind of works together. And here's where I'm kind of rethinking this area over here. Like, I ended up adding in the tragic clown painting, which I felt like, again, I was trying to say, I was saying I was trying to make this not look like a clown bakery, but then I went ahead and stuck in the clown painting. But I felt like that did work. And that kind of felt like something that would be in here. Like they were trying to find very weird things to just combine in here. And I also think Sugar Rush was just such a good name for this place because, you know, sugar goes with baked goods, but then this place also just feels like kind of a busy rush when you walk in because there's just so many different colors, so many different mismatched things. So I just felt that name was so fitting of this place. But we're getting kind of near the end of the wall decorations, and I rethought those random bunnies I put up there. Like I had a lot of trouble trying to figure out what to stick above the door, and I was also gonna like stick that magazine cover thing in there, like kind of thinking maybe that was a magazine cover from an article, like from a magazine that had an article about the bakery, but it felt like a little bit too much, so I just sized up the cake decal and just left that as it, because I don't know, as I said before, I was trying to have some balance to this and not make it super duper overwhelming. And I believe I ended up replacing that bunny decal with more of the flower ones. Another thing is that I did add in the espresso machine and grinder, because I'm not sure if you needed the grinder with that espresso machine that I put in there, but I just stuck in there anyway just in case. So that way if your Sims do come here and they do want to have coffee, they can just go ahead and make it themselves. So it does kind of give this place a feel that it is a cafe as well as a bakery, because that was what the place I went to was. Like it was a bakery, but they also had this kind of cafe thing going where you could just go there and get some coffee as well, and it was just so cool. And they also had all of these really unique cakes just in cases around the place, like just showcasing the best stuff that they made. And I was hoping, because I thought they had like a single tile glass case. I was thinking it could be cool to stick a cake in something like that, but I wasn't quite able to find that, so I just stuck with those 2 shelves that came with Get to Work, which is fine. And I do wish there were more unique cakes that came with the game, because we have like 3 different kinds of tiered cakes, like the white tiered cake and then the black and white and the white and black tiered cake. So I kind of wish we had more interesting tiered cakes than that, because that would have been really cool to add to this build, but unfortunately we didn't have that, so I ended up just having to stick with more plain cakes in here. But at this point, I'm almost done with furnishing the kitchen area, so I just got more arrows in there for fun, and I kept it, of course, a very bright and vibrant color, so we just got the greens and the blues, and we're on to the last part of the build, which are the bathrooms. So I try to add a lot of decorations in here, but isn't quite as busy as the rest of the cafe. But I ended up going with more of a kind of a graffiti theme in here. Like I used that graffiti decoration that came with Get Famous in here, and then I also added some of the other ones from Get Together, so it's a little bit of a different vibe in here, but it does go well with the rest of the build. I also stuck those arrows above the toilets. Like I don't know, I just thought that was kind of funny. Like I got a kick out of that. Like it's just pointing down like, hey, here's the toilet. But we are at the end of the building part of the video, so as usual, if you want to download this, there will be a link to do so in the description. There will be other stuff in there on how to find it in-game. And that's going to be all from me, so hope you enjoy the rest of the video.